Hey everybody, I'm Lee Williamson, and today I'm going to show you how to do that horrible pie chart infographic that every now and again all of us motion designers have to do. And usually you'll be trying to do it in After Effects, but it's really not that easy. But tell you what, in Cinema 4D, it is so simple. So I want to show you how to do it from the ground up. So let's dive right in. Right, so let's get on to making our pie. If you go into this over here, you will find a bunch of primitive objects and you'll find something called a cylinder. We can scale down our cylinder to 20, put our radius at about 50. Let's just zoom in nice and there so we can have a proper look at our pie. And then we can go into your slice settings and set it to 300 on the from. And we can call this big pie, duplicate that pie, call this little pie, boom. And we can set this on 60 degrees and rotate it around to fill a gap. If you want to differentiate between the two pies, we can maybe fiddle with the height settings. Let's put it on about 15. And if you go into your side view here, you can set your wire height down to minus 2.5 or not 2.5. Let's move that up a little bit more. That's minus 2.5. Okay, so you have now your two pies. Fantastic. Okay, so the next step would be to animate the pie opening and closing, animating on. So if you go to your slice settings again, you drop a keyframe on from, and we can set that back to 0. Lock down that keyframe, move up to 40 frames and put 300% on there. Fantastic. So right now we have a pie animating on. And we can do the same thing for the little pie. For the little pie, we can drop a keyframe on 40%. Let's put that at 0. Save that. Move that up to, let's say, 50. Put it back to 60 and drop a keyframe. Now you notice when we play this, it's not very smooth. So we can find a solution to this. If we go back to your big pie, and we right click on our settings, we go to animation, go to F curve, you're going to see an easy ease F curve. Now you notice over here, this line is diagonal. That means the movement is consistent. Now with a big pie, we actually want our big pie not to ease out at the end. We want it to feel like it's continually going. So that force actually ends up going into the small pie. Now if we go to our small pie and right click on that, animation, F curve. Now that momentum is going to continue into the little pie from the big pie. So we can straighten out your F curve over there. So now it ends off, and the small pie is essentially the one that ends at the very end. So now when we play it, we're going to go boom, and motion goes straight into the other one. Fantastic. So now the next thing is, which is really annoying, is I'm sure you've noticed you've got these two little slices here, quite annoying to be seen on the screen. So if you go to big pie and you go into your basic settings, you'll have visual editor and render editor. And you can basically drop 2 keyframes on there and turn them off. And then on the very next keyframe, you can turn them back on again. So essentially this is kind of like turning your opacity on and off for your objects. So in the first frame, you can't see anything, and then boom, suddenly it turns on. And we're going to do the same thing on the little pie. Just before the little pie starts, we are going to turn the eye off, and then 1 keyframe forward, and we're going to turn the eye on. So now what we should have is no pie, boom, and it's drawing on. Fantastic. So now the next thing is, let's just save this out so I don't lose it. Working files, pie version, let's just say pie version 3. We want to now add some color to this. So you can add a new material inside here. and you can drop it onto the big pie. Boom. So we got now big pie has got a color on it. Now, if you just want a flat shade, which is what I'm going for, that vector style look in After Effects, you can go and use your luminance channel. So you turn these off, turn your luminance channel on, and it makes it fully white. But we want to have two colors. So if you go into your texture, scroll down to Sketch and Tune Cell, you should now get some color shading values. Now, first of all, EJ from iDesign showed a really cool technique where you do your diffuse as your color value. So we can go and put in, let's just say, a gray color. And over here, we'll make this white. Fantastic. So now if you go into your interactive render region, you will see two color values. If you now want to choose a color, you can, the really cool thing is that you can actually color drop in Cinema 4D. Let me just show you a quick little technique here. Let's just say color palette. Go to images, and we think fantastic. Here's the nice color palette. I really like it. And I can use my color dropper, and I can color drop a color right off the bat. And boom, I've got a color. The thing is, nothing's showing. So if we go into our mix strength over here, we can set this to multiply. And what it does is that gray color you saw is now multiplied like in Photoshop, and you'll get the color underneath it. Thing is, you're still not seeing the two color shades, which means we actually have to set a light on the scene. So if you go and drop a light in, and we can set that light to infinite light. Now you've got to also set the angle of the light. So if we just rotate that light up, let's say 90 degrees, fantastic, still nothing happening. Let's try again to 70 degrees and see if that works. Still nothing. Well done, Lee. You've got nowhere. Let's try that again. Let's go and have coordinates here and put -270 and see if we have any changes with our colors. Of course. So click off cameras and put on lights. So what's actually happening is you're registering the light source in there. Now you can see two different color values. And if we want to, let's just call this, double click here and call this purple, boom. If you want to duplicate it, Control Shift, and you'll have another color. Now let's go back inside here and choose a different color. So once again, same thing, color drop. I'm going to choose a different color. Let's go for this slightly redder color. And I'm going to drop that redder color onto the smaller pie. Fantastic. So now we have the two pies colored in there and animating on. Fantastic. We interrupt our regular transmission for this really horrible video cut. So there was another really cool thing I wanted to mention to you. You can actually put hex values in Cinema 4D without color dropping, although color dropping is a lot easier. If you go into File, Edit, and you go into your Preferences, you go under Units, and right down here at the bottom, there's a checkbox called Hexadecimal Mode. Now, hexadecimal, hex code sounds similar. Cool. So if you go into your color settings, now there will be something called hex, and you can actually copy and paste a hex code value. That's awesome. Anyway, back to our tutorial. So the next step is, you know what, it might be a little bit more realistic if maybe it scales the height of the object. So we can do that if we go to the big. Now remember, we set up 40 keyframes here. So if we go in the beginning, we say big, and we set our height to 0. Now remember, the previous height was 20. So we scroll up to 40 and set in 20 over there, lock it in, go back into our F-curve manager, and remember, do the same thing again. We want the movement to be continuous at the end, so we're going to make that continuous. And then we're going to go to little pi and do the same thing. It was from 40 to 50 on the keyframes. So we can go height is 0, save that down, go to 50, height was 15, and then save that. Let's go back into our F-curve manager, and remember the movement is continuous at the very end. So boom. Now when we animate in, we should have it scaling up at the same time. Fantastic. You know what? That scaling at the end of the second pi wouldn't exactly be that way. We probably want to go maybe somewhere in the middle. So we click on little pi, and let's rather set the height to something like, if it was 15, we can give it 10 maybe, and save that again. I need to go back into F-curve manager and just straighten out that curve. Let's see, that's a little bit nicer. Boom. In fact, if anything, we could probably check how big our big pi is at this height. You know what, it could probably totally take out the height value. We probably don't even need it, to be honest. Let's just set that to 15 so it doesn't change. Okay, so go boom, and fantastic. I'm quite happy with that pi. So the next step is we want to put it into After Effects. So we go into our settings on save, and we set this to PNG. 8-bit is fine. Actually, let's just put it 16 to be safe, and put on alpha channel, because this is the way you cut the background out when you're saving things out. And then when you want to save your file, just click on this button over here and go into footage, pi PNG sequence, and let's just give it a name, pi. Right, so now we saved out. Is there anything else we want to do? Let's just try. Okay, so I press Shift R, and it starts to render it out straight. Now you'll notice it's not very smooth on the side of the pi. So what we could do is we could just bring the segments up on both pies. So you'll notice if you go into Garage Shading, we can actually bring up the rotation segments. So let's just jam it up to 100. Yeah, I think that's nice. And then Shift R again, render out again, and fantastic, looks so much better. Now the other thing I forgot to do is if you go into your output settings on current frame, you want all frames, so it renders everything up to 90 frames. Now my animation really only goes up to 50, so I can really just put 50 frames over there. Okay, that's so much better. Turn your keyframes to 25 in the UK like me. You probably also want to go into your project settings here and put 25 on there. Right, and we're ready to go. So Shift R, and we're rendering out the pi. The nice thing with using cell shading, it renders out so fast. We've already rendered. Fantastic. So next thing is we're going to open up After Effects. So let's just find it over here. Teaching pi 2. Working files, footage, pi. Right. And make sure you've got PNG sequence checkboxed over here, otherwise it won't pull in the whole entire footage. Press import and drag it in, and boom, we have a pi. Now the one thing you've got to be careful of doing is this is currently still set on 30, which is a bit of a strange thing I found in After Effects. If you right click it and you say interpret footage, press main, and we change that to 25, and we're sorted. Now also, I didn't speak about cameras, so maybe another cool thing we could do is just to show you how to set up a camera. Now I can whack a camera into the scene. Currently the camera goes exactly where my view is, which is not what I want. So if we turn the camera on and we say reset PSR on the camera, it drops the camera back to the central point on the stage. Now we want a camera to go point towards the Z in Cinema 4D. And I can take this camera now, and if I turn this eye on, you can see what the camera looks like. If you go to coordinates and you pull back on the Z, you'll be able to see the Pi in its full glory, but not quite the angle that you want. So if you drop in just in any old cube object, press T on the keyboard, scale it down, and then you go to tags on your camera and you put a target tag in, and you pull in the cube on the target. So now when I move this cube around, the camera looks at where this Pi is. Now the first thing you want to do is on your camera, you want to set your Y value up. So imagine the camera is going up into the air, and now it's looking at your Pi. And you can take this cube and move it around, and the camera looks wherever the cube is. So if you keep the cube roughly in the middle, and you know what, you don't want to see your cube, so you can just turn the eyes off and boom, you've got it there. Now another cool thing you can do with your camera is, if you're a graphic designer like me, you want to see a grid. So it's pretty annoying when you don't see a grid. So if you go into your camera and you go to your composition settings, there should be something called grid. And you can click on your grid and you can up your cells to see that's roughly in the middle. You can even work down a crosshair. And now, fantastic, things are just a little bit smoother. Now I can take that cube, go to my coordinate settings, and I can move things around until it's directly in the middle, and I'm so much happy with that. Now I know for definite it's in the middle. Now you'll also notice there's these gray bars at the top and the bottom, and sometimes it's nice to be able to see your objects quite central by darkening these bars, which I can show you. You go into your file and you go into, not files, you go into your options, configure, that's Shift V, and you go into view, and there's something called tinted border. You can whack this up to 50%, and now suddenly these bars are nice and dark on the side. It's just so you can pretty much see your viewed area that your video is in. So now that the camera is nice, I can press Shift R again and render this out, and it renders out again at the new angle that I'm so much happier with. Right, so you can go back into After Effects now, and all you have to do is go right click and you say reload footage, and say OK, and changes your angles right on the fly. And boom. So now the next thing is you probably want to do is drop in a solid, give it a color, let's say purple. It's a pretty rubbish purple, but anyway. We can do the same thing with the color dropping right here. You can go to solid settings, and you've got your color setting over here. I can open my browser and say maybe I wanted my background to be orange, so I can color drop. Fantastic, well done, Lee. Let's try that again. Right, so I found out the problem that I had a few seconds ago. What you're going to do is, under my color settings, I found that they were incorrect. I actually had linear working space checked. So I've unchecked linear working space, hit OK, and now it should color drop perfectly. So if you go into your solid settings and you color drop a color, we can go for, so now purple. See, now you know the color matches perfectly. Let's try orange. Okay, so we just drag it aside, document settings, and go for orange. And we are set to go. Right, I hope you guys would like that. Hopefully it shed some light on things you didn't know, and maybe made Cinema 4D a little bit less intimidating to you. If you like the video, please like, please subscribe, and if you have any other questions, please, if I can do it, if it's in my power, I will make a tutorial for you. And if I don't know how, I will research it and give it my best anyway. Anyway, speak soon again. Cheers, bye.